Coffey. I am representing MovieJawn this afternoon. It is lovely to speak with you. I'm glad you got yourself a break. I hope you got some water because
Right down there.
perfect, perfect. I like to ask, not the hard-hitting questions, but I do like to dive a little deep. I'm also a horror fan, so this conversation is, I hope, will be so much fun for you as it will be for me. Um,
Awesome.
but I first want to get into talking about the movie a little bit, Forbidden Fruits. We have some lovely 2000s vibes, some girlhood, womanhood, but also the woes that come with girlhood and
hmm
womanhood.
hmm
But I wanted to ask you if you could describe the behind the scenes approach to encapsulating that 2000s energy of this film. I mean, you shot it in 2024, I guess, at this point, 2024, 2025. So it's been quite a while, but like besides the Gabrielle Union of it all and the Mean Girls Mall, I know I did my research. What was it like to try to emulate that 2000s feeling?
I don't even know that it was on purpose. It sort of was like the references that we were looking at and the conversations that Lily Houghton, my co-writer, and I were having were very nostalgic. We sort of were like, how do we make the movie feel timeless, but also pay homage to what we grew up loving, which is, I'm in my 30s. It's like, Hilary Duff. I mean, there were
Yeah.
some other, references we couldn't name because of IP purposes, but like the stiletto collab, and I think that really the conversations we had about our own girlhood lend themselves to sort of the fashion. And we're sort of, at the age where like what we were wearing in, middle school. I live in the East Village. It's like the girls are wearing this in my neighborhood out and about. And so it was cool to like have that perspective. And I think, when the cast watched the movie, Lili Reinhart was like, I don't know what I expected, but like it feels like a 2000s movie. And I was like, well, it's also because we shot it in a way that is filmic. The Alexa 35, it's not film, but it really has that grain and it looks like it. And my DP,
Mhm.
Kareem Hussein, and I really wanted the film to feel rich. And I think we forget that even like rom-coms were shot on film in the 2000s. And I really, it's a compliment to hear that the movie feels of that era because we really, at least in the way we shot it, wanted it to feel that way.
Yes, and the bright colors of it all too. I mean, a horror movie, we can talk about Midsummer, about the bright colors and how it's so different from the horror that we're used to seeing. And same thing for this movie. I mean, the costuming and just the bright lighting. I mean, you all shot during the night for most of the time, and you would have no idea that's the magic of movie making. But I wanted to ask, looking at your film history, you do admire horror. It shows up in your work. And so what is it about the horror genre that attracts you and your storytelling as a director?
I think it really goes back to my family. My dad was a huge horror fan. We'd go to Blockbuster. I was terrified of the Hellraiser cover.
Notably
Terrified.
so. Like it makes sense.
Yes, yes. And I think he really taught me about movies. So did my mom. And we joke, my brother and my cousin and I are all huge horror fans. And we're like, all of the children of them like went into the
Yeah.
movie business. But growing up, they didn't work in movies, Like this is crazy to me that I had the privilege to make a film and direct a film because, I'm not a Nepo baby. No hate on Nepo babies, but, it really goes back to just being a lover of film at a young age. I mean, I saw Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola version, when I was 5, snuck into my parents' room, watched it when they were falling asleep. That was either the best or the worst decision. But, I think it made me fall in love with like that movie and Lost Boys with practical effects as well.
Yes.
You're like, girl,
I am so familiar with Lost Boys.
oh my gosh, the earring. I lost my little, I have a Keith or Sutherland little earring. I lost it. Got to bring it back for the rest of the press tour. But,
Yeah.
I do think that like it is truly up to, our generation of filmmakers to preserve practical effects. It's like, if we're not doing it, then who will? And, we had a really great team and Kareem, my DP, and I really, I'm trying not to give away some of the kills with the
It's hard,
references,
yeah.
but like we watched a lot of older movies and we're like, how did they do it? I
Yeah.
mean, Dawn of the Dead, and I just watched Night of the Living Dead on my Blu-ray Criterion that I got starting my collection. And they didn't have money. This is a little indie movie, and like knowing how to do something practically gets you really far. And it's kind of
Yeah.
funnier. The kills are funnier.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree. That brings me into a question that I had, where, reading the script and you had mentioned you read it and you were like, oh, Mean Girls, but a slasher.
Hmm.
So reading the script, was there something in there that stuck out to you as a horror fan and you just thought to yourself, like, this is something that I have to see, something that you've seen in previous movies that you were like, this has to be in there. And if it is a spoiler, that's okay. And you can say it.
Okay. I think that my favorite kills to write are my own anxieties. Like when we
Um,
said it, I just was like, I think that the dynamic between the women and I didn't see the play, I only read it, but I've seen a lot of theater. I just saw Tracy Letts Bug, which is a good example of like,
mm,
whoa, people were gasping. I was like, I feel ill. Like, when you see something
mhm.
in person, you're like, oh my God, this is like crazy. There's a lot of genre elements in that. I can imagine people seeing Of the Woman Came the Beginning of Sin and Through Her We All Die, felt how visceral female breakups can feel,
Mm.
betrayals in female friend groups. And I was like, let's use genre to further that feeling. And then when we said it in a mall, I was like, what am I not, like, what am I not scared of? It's like, I'm trying
Yeah.
not to give it away, but like, I can say, like, working in retail, X-Acto knives. I was like, we need an X-Acto knife moment because X-Acto knives are just running rampant.
All
Like,
over the
you
place.
need a license for an X-Acto knife?
Yeah.
People are opening boxes. I'm like, what? I was like, okay, got to put that in there. So I think that for me, I was like, why don't I lean into my worst nightmare and then play it out? And then that helps my anxiety.
Yeah. And I want to say this without giving something away, but I noticed a Final Destination. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I picked up on it and I'm keeping it to my heart.
I'm gonna give you this.
Okay.
So we basically had part of that movie cut into the movie for the test screening because we still had to figure out how to land the magnum opus scene. And yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. And I was like,
Okay.
well, until we figure that out, this is our temp stuff that we're throwing in. So you
Yeah.
are right on the nose.
I love being right.
Yeah.
Um, moving on a little bit further, as this is your first feature film, I was
Mhm.
interested to know how you feel it's impacted you as a director, as the art that you produce. Like, have you learned anything? Are you taking away something to move on to another short or anything like that? Like,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts about just the things that you do within the film space?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really, when you make a movie, you have to be ready to live with those characters and those questions for
Mm,
years. And I mean that in a good way. Like, I'm so fortunate to be sent a script to be considered to direct. And I will, most of the time, be like, this isn't asking questions that I want to spend years exploring. When I'm
mm,
writing, it's really because I don't understand something in my own life and I don't know how to process it, so I write it and then I make the film and then I learn something about myself. Like with Forbidden Fruits, I really learned and it was a mirror up to the ways that I hide things from my female friends.
mm,
When we were planning the confessionals, I was so nervous about that because I was like, how do I shoot these? How do I shoot these? All I
yeah.
knew was I want us as an audience to feel like we're looking in a mirror. And then we did the double-sided mirror of it all and really cracked that. I'm really proud of it. So I think that like what I sort of learned is like, yeah, be ready. I think the best movies, you feel like directors are really dying to know more about it, dying to make something, share it with people, and have people help you understand something. It's
Yeah.
been a gift doing press for a movie because you guys understand things about me that I didn't even know.
I love when that shines through. I think we might have time for one more question, hopefully.
Hmm.
But I wanted to ask, in the face of censorship currently, do you find yourself to be more motivated to produce art like Forbidden Fruits?
Yeah, I think that taking risk is important and I think failing is important. I think that like particularly as a woman, like I was so afraid to kill one character in particular at the very end, you know. Not that I was like, afraid to, or not afraid to kill anyone. It was more just like, oh God, are people are going to come for me because the person who dies isn't the person that we think, and maybe the person who's actually more villainous survives. And I had to let go of that. You know, I had to let go of the fear and be like, but this is the story I'm telling. I mean, Lily Houghton and I say so many times, like, we can't put a bow at the end of this movie. Like, women are still struggling to support each other in this landscape, you know? Like, I don't want to lie, you know? And I think that that is important. Like, artists are the people that should be taking risks and exploring difficult things to talk about and things that are uncomfortable because, you know, that's the way to healing, hopefully,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. Thank you for oh my gosh, for such a sincere answer. And thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. Congratulations
Thank
on your first
you.
feature film. And I can't wait to see what else comes from the mind of Meredith Alloway.
Oh, that's crazy. You're so sweet. Thank you for your great questions.